Hey, good evening. Welcome to A Foreigner in the Philippines. Well, a subject that I've touched on before because I got caught up in this particular what I call organized crime when I think of banks, and what other people call the banksters. Sounds like a good name to me. So what happened when people started a few years ago, certainly in Florida where I was living, about losing their homes, and someone sent me, my friend Roger, from somebody else, I think from Michelle Cruz, actually sent this excellent video about what, well, just in case you can actually look it up and find it, you should. I didn't catch the man's name, very clued up guy. The truth about your mortgage, secrets the banks don't want you to know. And in that, he explains what I've tried to explain before, but he has so much more knowledge, and he's done the research, and he's taken it through on all of the relevant laws. But basically, what the scam is, and it surely has to be viewed as a scam. When you sign up for your mortgage, you sign a note obviously saying that you'll pay whatever the price is. In this case, this guy says, supposing you borrowed $400,000. Well, at one time that would have been a pretty nice house. so anyway, you would borrow that, and you would also sign a note saying that you would promise to pay that amount of money. Now, here's what I've always known as fractional banking. I know this is a very dry subject, but when you realize what an incredible scam was perpetrated on the entire nation, and I don't know, possibly the world, then you should be at least interested, because there is more of a way out than you think. Now, I just lost my house. Now, the house that I was in the process of buying when everything went down the toilet was valued at 183,000, 180 anyway. It finally sold when I had to leave. It sold for 40 something thousand dollars on the court steps. Now, there's a chain of events that happens here that's very, very interesting, because it means that you are involved just by the signing of your name. And this is what my friend in the UK called fractional banking. Just by signing for whatever it is that you've received, you are giving a note which the lender, the bank, can take to, I think, through the Federal Reserve, I think is the way it goes. But please check out this particular site, because it's really, really interesting and very, very scary. But what it means is, on production to the right people, the banks can set up a trust. Now, your note is for 400,000, but the bank is allowed to use that as the basis as security on millions of dollars, because it comes out at something 10 times what the note you've signed is for. And sometimes, in another case, the man says 30 times. So we're talking about a great deal of money, and just plus or multiply this a few times from a few people like you and I, and we are talking about huge amounts of money which go into a trust. Now, when I got in trouble, when my work went down the toilet, along with many other people, I actually went to the bank, and see, at one point, as soon as I got my mortgage, they sent a check. I got a check for $8,000 Now I got a check for $8,000. Said all you have to do is just sign the back of it and cash it, which of course I did. Now I had a payment to make on that. Now when I got in trouble, I went to that office which I dealt with and made my payments to, and I said, look, I need a couple of months, maybe 3 months, just to recover, because things are going to change, work is going to start coming in again, and I have excellent credit which I don't want to be damaged. I don't want that credit to be damaged. And I spoke to the manager and he said, look, this is not my idea, but in fact I cannot help you. I cannot give you time. I can't give you a couple of months of paying till you get on your feet. What you have to do is you have to go 3 months, 90 days. You go 90 days being unable to pay the mortgage, so you simply don't pay. Now what happens on 91 days is that the insurance comes in and pays the debt. So the banks haven't lost anything. Now right about that time there was a man who was in a house that was worth several $1,000,000, and they were trying to get him to pay, and he was saying, before I pay, I want to see the original note. Now every house, everything has an original note. Now when they took him to court, the judge upheld his right to see the original note. Now I know that when my case came in, they just had a copy of the note, but if they had that. Now the man with the several $1,000,000 house, he walked away back to his house again because they were unable to produce the original note and find out what the paper trail was on where his loan had actually landed. And so his point was, I'm quite willing to pay as long as I know who I'm paying and if they are entitled to get the money from me. The judge upheld his view and dismissed the case. Now what was happening around that time was that mortgages were being bundled, were being put together in bundles. So let's say that on Jeffrey Street there were 10 mortgages and they were in either good or bad state, but they'd all be bundled together, and let's say that they were worth 5 million. That became something that could be sold as a bundle. This is my understanding of it. But what happened was everything was moving so fast, property was gaining in value at that stage very, very quickly. I hadn't been in my house that long and it was already so much worth, so much more than my original price. So I was able to refinance. So what was happening was that people were buying these bundles, and a lot of them were being bought up by people in China, in Korea, and in the Asian side of the world. So the paperwork was all, well, we'll send the paperwork on, is what it amounted to. So people didn't actually get to ever see the original note. And then nobody followed up. The original note, I guess, was lost somewhere. And so that's when you've got the mess. And that's when our friend, our savvy friend with the $2 million or $3 million home said, I'm not paying until I know who holds the original note. And so there was a lot of problem. A lot of people stayed in their homes and they had the money to fight the action. Now, this man that I'm talking about now for the truth about your mortgage, secrets that the banks don't want you to know, has followed this through, and it's really very interesting, because at one point he says the note that was not notarized that you signed is now worth 30 times what is the figure on that note. It's worth 30 times. But the bank that was holding the mortgage, it's now been sold on. They've been paid for it. So I'm trying to get this down to a bottom line that you'll be able to understand enough to prompt you to go to see this video. The fact is that when it comes to following through this paper chase, this track, if the mortgage has been paid off, exactly who has lost the money? No, at first look, it's nobody, because the bank didn't lose, because the insurance paid. But it turns out that the insurance were paying the mortgages in full. Now, if you're sitting in the house, it becomes to be a very confusing situation of who actually owns the house. And the best example was when the man he set the example of, if you buy a new car and you total the new car, and the insurance company pay out on that. So the insurance company is out the wreckage, and all they have is the wreckage of the car. So what they do is they put that out and they sell it for what they can get, and that's the way that they minimize their cost. And it's a similar kind of thing, but with the houses. But the point this man makes is that it is not as clear as you might think. It's a deliberate thing to refuse. I was deliberately refused time to be able to pay so that they would get their insurance money. So then it's not their problem. As the manager said to me, you have to wait 90 days and then it goes to collection. It goes to collection. And when it goes to collection, it's no longer, that's the same as saying it's no longer the problem of the bank that held the note. So now somebody else has bought that as a bad debt, and what happens mostly with cars and things and other debts is that that's sold on for pennies on the dollar. But when the collection company go to the person who owes the money, they will make it seem as if they are operating for the bank. And it's important for you to say, am I talking to an employee of the bank, or have you bought this debt for cents on the dollar? And that usually causes them to actually look at what they think you know. So go to this, because it's a really interesting thing, and if you have been victim to having lost your house, you might be really concerned about how that went. I know that it was a shock for me when I listened to the whole video. Thanks for looking in. This is a foreigner in the Philippines. Bye for now.